Here's where the Dolphins making the playoffs is fun. If Tua makes the playoffs over Justin Herbert because Justin Herbert crumbled down the stretch, that should be a fun narrative to talk about all offseason. Am I right?
No. Justin Herbert is better than Tua. No.
Don't make the throw up sound, man. That kind of makes me kind of get into it. It's the whole thing. We don't want this whole thing turning into a Stand By Me.
No, I'm getting PTSD at the idea of having to do a Tua versus Herbert versus Burrow conversation.
Oh, I think Burrow is starting to separate himself in that discussion. And that is why let's talk about Joe Burrow and the Kansas City Chiefs. Joe Burrow, 525 yards against that porous Baltimore Ravens secondary. Joe Burrow, 4,000 passing yards. Joe Mixon, 1,000 rushing yards. T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, both 1,000 yards receiving. Tyler Boyd, hell, might even sneak into that 1,000-yard discussion. The Cincinnati Bengals offense has been electric this year, folks. And Joe Burrow, I think he's locked it in. Comeback player of the year. I think he passed Dak Prescott. I think he passed Nick Bosa. Joe Burrow has been the engine behind this team and their success. And yes, the Ravens had all their injuries to have to deal with, but the fact they were able to sweep both the Ravens and the Steelers for the first time since 2009, the Bengals are just having a great season. But it all comes down to this for them and the fact they face a Kansas City Chiefs team that is on fire, on their winning streak, has just been, now they're getting to the point where they're just blowing out people. They've gotten that thing back in their bag as well. They're blowing out people. They just manhandled the Steelers out there, beat up on the Raiders as they've done this season, and even had that electric Thursday night game against the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chiefs are cooking now. The Bengals, they're cooking. I guess it really just comes down to who's more likely to have a disappointing performance on any given Sunday. The Chiefs are 5-point favorites on the road heading into Cincinnati in this one. I guess it comes down to me, like, for a couple things, like Trey Hendrickson's health, I know is a big one. He extended also a streak for him too, at least having a half sack in consecutive games. He's managed to keep that streak going from earlier in the season. Not quite the full sack streak that he had at one point.
I think it's like
10
games or something now. Something like
10 so games. Trey Hendrickson's been great for them. Can they enforce like the scheme that has been so effective against the Chiefs early in the year? I think I struggle with the Chiefs. I'm just trying to evaluate their level of competition in this recent run of games too. Because yes, they've gone better. We talked about the early parts of the streak where they were beating teams, barely beating teams. They were beating the Jordan Love-led Packers, the Giants in there, and those were close games and they were ugly.
Dak Prescott without Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, those games. And then now they're getting this part of the stretch where the Pittsburgh Steelers have floated between being a good defense and being a bad defense at times. The Raiders have floated between being a good defense and a bad defense. And the Chargers just have a bad defense too. That's something that should be said too. The Chargers have a bad defense this season. The Cincinnati Bengals are more of a middle of the road defense at the end of the day. Clyde Edwards,
they're middle of the road defense that's very good at pass rushing. They're very good in the pass rush. Their corners are okay. Chidobe Awuzie was a great free agent signing for them, but Jesse Bates is apparently a second team All-Pro last year. I found that out just the other day. There was a great meme from when they released those new jerseys and they did that photo shoot with all their stars. There were 7 players in the photo shoot. I know one is Joe Mixon. I know 2 of them are white. And I had no idea who Jesse Bates was. I'm like, I know he's in there somewhere. I just have no idea which one is Jesse Bates. He made second team All-Pro last year. So yeah, he's also in the secondary. Their strength is in their passing defense, less strong in the rushing defense, which I believe the Chiefs can attack you both ways. But I could be wrong because the Kansas City Chiefs offense has gotten in trouble with turnovers, and then you get down and then you have to throw the ball more. And maybe that plays into what the Bengals are doing better. The thing that because you are correct, the Chiefs have played a relatively weak schedule in the back end, even though when they were 3-4, everyone's like, the Chiefs might miss the playoffs because look at how hard their schedule is.
They come on. They did get blown out by the Titans. They did get blown out by the Bills. There was some legitimate cause for concern. Patrick Mahomes was throwing
2 months
ago. Yes, and now they made the adjustments. And one of the big things whenever I was proclaiming them dead at one point too was that they didn't seem like they were making the necessary adjustments because We know why their team is struggling, and yet you're not fixing the one thing that your team is struggling with. And credit to them, their defense has been one of the biggest stories for them. Their defenses came on strong in their stretch of games, their win streak here. We're starting to see those players like Chris Jones and Tyrann Mathieu and all these guys that made big plays for them come on relatively strong. Their corners, have been actually surprisingly good, more or less. I mean, after we got past that rough part of games. But yeah, no, back to your point. It's,
I think Kansas City is going to be just fine. Kansas City the defense is stable enough now. When mentioning those players, I think one that's really stepped up is Frank Clark. And I have a nickname for him. No one else calls him it, but I call him the plumber because Frank Clark is the name of a plumber. And he's been fantastic for them. He's had I think like 5 sacks in 5 games, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong there. That one's just going off the top of my head. So I could be wrong on the stat there, but Kansas City's defense has been stable enough. I will take the drama out of it, and I will take Kansas City to win against the Cincinnati Bengals because the Kansas City Chiefs are a better team than the Cincinnati Bengals. And I'm just going to play the odds on this one. I'm not saying the Bengals can't win this game, but I'm playing the odds on this one and just saying, because instead of doing a toss-up game, I'm like, well, the Chiefs are about 60% instead of 50%. So I'll take the Chiefs as a safe pick, which burned me last week on the Patriots because I knew the Bills were going to win. I picked them in the take it easy pick'em pool, and yeah, all that happened. So I'll take Kansas City here this week.
Well, this is the opportunity for the Bengals certainly to win the AFC North. That would be huge for them too. So I definitely think that they have a chip on their shoulder to want to play this game well. But one thing that kind of stands out to me, and this is just from the narrative of letdown games, the fact that Joe Burrow did have that 525-yard passing day, had his kind of wink and nudge little thing in the press conference against Wink Martindale there, where they're like, oh, we're not ready to give Joe Burrow any gold jackets anytime soon. And he was like, oh yeah, I kind of like took that bulletin board material and had a little fun with it. It's a young team. Young teams that have these type of victories, have these type of explosive offensive outputs tend to regress the following week. The Chiefs are a little bit more mature in terms of their game planning. Certainly when you have a good coach like Andy Reid, you have a Hall of Fame level coach like Andy Reid.
Well, I would go as far as to say the greatest offensive coach in the history of the NFL.
No love for Eric Coryell?
I mean, he is a San Diego guy, but
no love for Bill Walsh?
I love both of those guys, but Bill Walsh did it for what, like 8 years? Andy Reid's done it across 25 years in 3 different places.
If you asked Andy Reid where he has like his head coaches or has his offensive coaches, he would probably say Bill Walsh is his top guy.
You are probably correct. And he comes from the Mike Holmgren tree and all of that. I think there's a level of respect there, of course, and admiration for the older generations as John Madden walks away. But I will be the youngin with no respect for the past who says Andy Reid doing it across 20 years is the greatest offensive coach.
Sean Payton might even have a little bit of an argument against you here. Sean Payton might even be a little bit upset at this one.
Sean Payton did design the perfect offense and got the perfect quarterback for his offense. And that is where they found all that success. I will give Andy Reid the nod because he's done it with Donovan McNabb, with Alex Smith, and now with Patrick Mahomes. And drafting Patrick Mahomes as well is like a big victory for him. But I will give the nod to Andy Reid. It's a semantics argument, but Hall of Fame level offensive game planner against Zach Taylor, who we both agree. I have no idea if Zach Taylor's a good
Zach Taylor, the up and coming. Am I right? No.
No idea. You could be right.
You're forgetting the real best offensive game caller. I'm talking Vince Lombardi with that power sweep, right? Unstoppable when properly blocked. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, fair enough.
No, I mean, but long way of saying, long interjections here. Thanks, Kyle. Rude. To say the Chiefs are going to win this game. I would love to go against you, but like I said, this is a letdown spot. This is the Bengals riding high off sweeping a division rival, having one of their best offensive outputs of the year. This is kind of one of those things whenever we're joking about whenever a baseball team has a huge offensive output, like scores 20, 30 runs, that it's like, damn, can you save some runs for tomorrow? This is kind of how I feel about like the Bengals doing what they did against the Ravens. And that's why I think that them versus the Chiefs, this is going to go in the Chiefs' favor, and they're going to officially lock up the 1 seed. So good for you, Kansas City. The road to the Super Bowl goes through Arrowhead once again.
4 years in a row.